sure this fires up now and we'll be good to go. Yep, and that's us live on Twitch.
Cool. I like the sugar cow hoo.
Yeah, our logo. It's a nice wee thing when you get text wherever you want and stuff. New logo as well for this one we're trying out. Done by one of our community guys on I think a whim one night.
It's aggressively smug.
It is, we seen it and we were just like, yep, we like that, we like that. The old one's kind of a pixelated type of deal, which is the one we use on Twitter, but this one just is more character to it, shall we say.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I've had to do a complete reset up for this one tonight. It's just been, it's not nice. It's not nice. It was hard enough to set up the first time.
It keeps you active. I mean,
Yeah.
what would life be if it was easy to do what you wanted to do all the time? Like, run a stream.
Yeah, that's a fair point. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. It's been good to see the a rise in new player streams recently as well. They've been pretty good. I've dropped in a couple and crashed their cameras. Well, crashed into their cameras a few times. You just hunt them down and fly in.
Yeah, well, a lot of people I think are very surprised at how interested everyone is in every aspect, from industry to PvP to running the market. Like, people very much vicariously like watching Eve, and they pick up tips that they might never have done.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm not even in game to stream it. I'm not even sure if the computer can handle getting it in game. So, folks, if you're listening in game, post it in whatever chat channels you have. Gilligan, if you have the CCDM one, can you post it there for me? Because they'll tune in. But I can't get on right now. With the CPU requirements of Twitch, we're not going to test the CPU in this machine. I just realised I don't even have the prize draw thing on here, app on here if I even wanted to do that.
And then you can just have people scream into the room that they want stuff, and you can give it to them.
I'll write them an IOU at the moment.
They're gonna write it on like a napkin, and ink, and with a little bit of butter and oil on it.
Sounds like a good idea to me. Place it in the middle of a C6 wormhole and a sleeper sign say go fetch. If you bring me the IOU, you can have the ship.
Someone would have it in like 15 minutes.
What, Gilligan, why do I need that CCP logo thing?
That's probably a little copyright thing.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, when I went for the fan site status, it's one of the little things. Make sure you add the copyright notifications everywhere.
Yeah.
Let's see, I was just told that they cannot hear me very well.
Oh,
If I
really?
can try to scream into the microphone.
It's showing in my OBS that you're coming through fine, but I hear background kind of fuzz, so that might be what they're hearing.
Well, I guess I'll try to hold the mic a little closer to my mouth or something like that, see if that will help.
Yeah, it seemed to be a bit better. Anyone in Twitch chat able to throw in what they're after? Or how she's sounding for me?
Yeah, they're telling me it's a bit better now. Yeah, I can't have you accusing me of nagging you to death.
And I'm sure I'll get shouted at by somebody by the time tonight's done. I really wish it would let me see who's actually watching the stream right now.
You know, you can just make up people. You can give them all random names.
Joe and Bob. Maybe Patrick.
Yes, and you can just say, yeah, you can just say, Jimmy, I need you to say something, and I need you to say it now.
SpongeBob, speak. No, SpongeBob's not there. We're not too bad for viewers. It's the kind of thing that it starts off low and then just kind of spikes and stays there once it gets going, you know.
Not a worry, you're the professional at this one. I'm along for the ride. I'm getting some of the residents of my chat channel signed up so that they can chat in the chat and ask questions when it comes up.
Oh, excellent. That's always good. It's, yeah. That's one of the things about Twitch is you have to be registered to post comments, so you get people viewing that aren't registered and things like that.
Yeah, so I just told him that, and he should get himself registered in a minute so he can drop in the chat.
Alrighty, I'm going to get the record set up here and we'll kick off in a minute then.
Yes, sir.
Alright, and that's us recording. So, welcome folks to Capsulator Podcast number 13. I'm Radomir and I'm joined tonight by Sugar Kyle. Hello!
Hello there.
So it's good to have you on. I think you're the first CSM 9 candidate this year?
Yeah, I managed to get, all excited and I posted first and then it went crazy. So you have like 19 people or something like that to interview now. The numbers are just rolling up.
Yeah, and it's of course it's the kind of thing that a lot of people will have waited for that first post and then go, okay, now I can post now, because that without an announcement, of course, which there hasn't been from CCP, it's quite hard to know when you should post, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I was looking and I looked at the post last year and I checked the dates. I'm like, well, they were posting last year, so I'm going to do it.
Yes, that's a bit of ingenuity right there to work out when's acceptable, I guess. So you excited for it?
Yes, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's interesting. The community's already showing that they're A, wanting to run, and B, wanting to interact with the people who are running and get this party started, so.
Yeah, definitely, and it's about getting you guys as much coverage as possible now, really, to make sure that you just get to say what you want to say to make sure you have the best chance of getting your points across.
Well, yep, that's what I'm here, and that's why I'm writing and I blog and I'm answering my questions on my thread. And some people have messaged me and some people have sent me mails or what have you, and I'm just trying to interact with people so they know who I am and why I'm here.
Yeah. So for those who don't maybe know who you are and what your background is, who is Sugar Kyle and how did you get into Eve?
So Sugar Kyle is a low-sec pirate who is mostly based out of Molden Heath. I'm a member of Columbus Intent, which is a low-sec PvP corporation. We go by pirate because most of us do not keep our sec status up, but we're not really piratey. We're more just PvPers. Let's see, I started even the very end of 2011, like the day after Crucible was released. I had read an article on crack.com and I was like, wow, look at that. People can do all sorts of incredible things to each other there. And I can play this and then people can kill me and I can shoot them back. And it sounded amazing, so I signed up. And from there, I started like a lot of players. I started as an industry pilot and I was mining. I got picked up by a high-sec mining corporation really quickly and I moved down to Derelict. And they happened to know somebody who knew pirates. So this particular person introduced us to the pirates. So they introduced us to this pirate corp, and they were helping us out and giving us advice with just fits and explaining Eve to this group of newbies, which is really nice of them. And then my CEO, though, was kind of like intimidated of them. So one day, one of them is like, hey, will somebody willing to make some money, because they needed some stuff run down to them and they didn't feel like coming into high-sec or dealing with it. And my CEO is like, oh, it might be dangerous, they might try to kill you. And I was like, they've been really nice to us and helped us, and if they really want to kill me and my little Iteron, then okay, I'm going to risk it. So I did the run, and they like protected me through like 8 or 9 jumps down to low-sec, and I dropped my stuff off, and I got out. And my CEO was a coward. I was surprised at how frightened he was of people who had been nothing but helpful and had never tried to hurt us. So from there, I found out he was stealing money. He was using it, and he's like, oh, the corp needs this, and the corp needs that, and the corp obviously needs a Navy Raven. So I left the corp, and I just kind of clung to the pirates, and they couldn't get rid of me. So it's like a little fantasy story, and suddenly they have this newbie, and I'm in a rifter, and I keep dying to gate guns, and I'm there, and they just kind of let me stay around, and now 2 years later, they still haven't gotten rid of me.
I guess that's a great way for someone to get into PvP in no-sec, is that someone just showing the fits and giving you the chance, and you just jumped right in and got down to business, I guess.
Yeah, I started staying with them pretty much my second month, and I was fully moved in by the end of my second month. So they got me fits because the Rifters kept dying to gate guns. So they got me into ruptures, and I would just tag along, and they ran level 5 missions. So I would salvage the missions, and they thought it was hysterical that I liked to salvage these missions. So they would salvage missions with me, and they're like, "Hey, your standings get up. You can pull missions for us." So here I am, 3 months old, salvaging level 5 missions in a Noctis, like 8 jumps into low sec with these PvPers. And I'm like selling my salvage back in high sec, and I have standings to pull level 5 missions at 3 months of age. And like, this is my life. This is what I'm doing down here. And I thought it was really cool, and no one believed that that's what I was doing. The other newbies that I knew from when I started, like, they did not believe me. They thought I was lying. It's kind of funny. That's one reason I started writing my blog.
Yeah, because of course, I mean, if you're not used to that kind of thing, it's hard to believe that that kind of money and you can get there that quickly. But I guess part of it is, as well, by the sounds of it, they hear of these big bad pirate corporations, and while this big bad pirate corporation was helping you with fits, your CEO definitely wasn't prepared to risk his cushy high sec to even have even risk going out and saying hello to them, really, other than obviously getting fits off them.
Yeah, so here I am, and I'm salvaging these missions, and of course they think it's funny, but I'm like, wow, here I am at 2 months of age, and like every mission that we run, I'm making, on average, because salvage wasn't quite as nerfed then, between 20 to 100 million, depending on which mission they were running. So I was bringing in all this ISK that I wasn't making when I was mining, and I wasn't making when I was struggling through level 3 missions, which was terrible. Like, I could not do in a battle cruiser. It was just a sad, sad situation. And so I'm making money, and we're running around and doing stuff, and I'm kind of PvPing a little bit, not a lot, because this is before Retribution, and gate guns would pretty much insta pop you, especially if you're a newbie, a T1 fit newbie in a rupture. Even then, I didn't make it off the gate a lot, so it was always, oh, hold on, okay, you can shoot this one, don't shoot this one. They managed me, and they taught me what I was doing. They taught me to make good decisions and to fit my ships, and they let me follow around.
Yeah, I mean, I know recently with the influx of players, a lot of the faction warfare groups have been getting really behind just giving those new players a chance, and I think Angel Project's been kicking back into high gear again recently, which is great to see, of course. But I mean,
Yeah, most definitely.
I guess just get out there. I mean, pirates are not as scary as Gilligan is, but or as most people think. I mean, most of them are just there to play the game, and they're playing it their way. They shoot at people because that's what their gameplay is. They're not there to shoot at you just to ruin your day most of the time.
Oh, it is. Well, the other day, goodness, was it Sunday night, we found a Hyperion in a mission, and so we scanned it down. We sent an interceptor in. I followed for secondary in my Jaguar in case the interceptor couldn't hold. The rest of the fleet comes in. This Hyperion launches 3 drones and 3 like ogre ones, and I just covered my eyes because I knew at that moment that this was probably a very new player because I hadn't checked show info. I was trying to kill people. You don't have time to look at them. Well, it turned out that in fact he was like a month old. I think he started. I was horrified at how young this character was in Losec and Hyperion doing a mission. Not that I don't think that this should happen, but obviously somebody had not given him the right information he needed to succeed, to be in Losec, to do a mission, and then to either defend himself, escape the situation, or just make a better decision than he made. So he lost his Hyperion, and I wrote a little mail like, "Hey, you died, this is why, think about these things." I put some links and some reference material in because I'm not going to not kill the Hyperion. I'm not going to look to see if the Hyperion's a newbie most of the time, especially when I'm being sent in as tackle. But at the same time, when I find out the end, I'm at least going to try to make that contact. And some people respond really well to it, and some people don't.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple of cases as well. I think Rixtivix posted one where they they tackled, they like put 6 or 7 points on a venture to stop it getting away that they caught out running complexes, and I think they just give them a whole pile of device, and it is really important that we give that help to new players. I know I've seen people in faction warfare as well, and they've been outflying themselves, and it's funny. We talk about kicking state protector guys out when they try and steal our LP, but they are so defensive because they're so used to these big alliances in faction warfare coming in and just stealing loyalty points off them, and it's something that I have always made sure my guys don't do, and I know none of them did it anyway. As far as I knew, and it's something I never let my fleets do at the same time, because at the end of the day, they're new guys, and we instead would say, why don't you fit up instead of a stabby fit? Why don't you fit up something combat? Join up with our fleet. You'll make a little less LP, but you'll have a bit more fun. Heck, we'll even give you the ship. And I know a lot of
Well, I always
alliances.
look at it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I figure we're in this game and we have the whole thing. We have the sandbox and CCP gives us tools. So everybody makes their own decision. Everyone's not going to make the same decision. Everyone's not going to want to love newbies. Everyone's not going to want to split what they're doing, because they're here to play. People want to do what they want to do, but I figure for the ones who do, it's great. And that just shows the diversity of the community. People get out there. Some people want to help newbies, some don't. You have situations where they'll recommend you to someone else. Like, I don't want to help you, but hey, these people might help you, so why don't you go over there? So, I mean, we're only going to make things if we make them ourselves. Whether that's helping newbies, no matter what we do, we have to do it ourselves. And that's one of the great things about this game.
I think in fact, it's the premise of the whole game is that if Eve player, it's down to Eve players to generate the content and to use the content, and we've got to help people because not everybody knows what they're doing, and I guess that's. I mean, and it's great that that kind of helping way is what got you in, and then that's what you're giving back now, 2, 3 years on.
That's exactly what I do. I mean, it's not every single moment, but sometimes I stumble upon people like Anthony, who's running around there in the chat room, who's my latest newbie, and I'm going to give him a name now since he's insisting on naming himself, not just, being pet and cuddled and given advice. Some of them like it. Some of them, some of them like take the advice and they go, and some of them don't, and some of them go off and do other things. But CCP said in that one survey or the minutes that people who are interacted with stay. So even if they don't read or respond to the mail, even if they don't come back to you and say, "Hey, that's great," you've interacted with them in a human to human way, and maybe they're going to stay in Eve because of that.
Yeah, I mean, Gilligan's just posted he thinks there should be a better tutorial for low sec, and I think that's something that's quite hard to do because you have to bring a player to low sec right away. But I mean, it's something I guess we'll talk on down in part 3 later on because it is a very interesting idea, and if there was a way that it could work, it could be very very useful.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think it's going to be a CCP and a player combined thing to make it happen. But I guess we'll go into that in part 3.
Oh
Not
yeah.
jump ahead of you.
No, it'll have to be player combined at the end of the day because I mean, CCP obviously have played the game, they still play the game, but we're the ones out there that really. I mean, you could argue, being players there, we know the game a bit better than them in some regards.
Well, definitely. CCP makes the game, and they have this idea, and that's what they code. That's what they're making. They have. I'm gonna say it. Go for saying a complete thought. But when you put that in action, what people are going to do with it? I mean, if somebody gives you an apple, they probably expect you to eat it. They don't expect you to bean somebody on the head with it, but you can bean somebody on the head with the apple, or you can make a pie with the apple, or you can feed something with the apple, or you can just grow your own apple trees. And they really weren't expecting you to grow your own apple trees. They were just trying to feed you with the apple. So it's just how it works.
That's a great analogy. I'm gonna have to remember that one. So I guess on to the main kind of point of why you're here is that you're of course running for CS9 as a low sec candidate, which is something we've of course been lacking this year.
Yes, I sat there and I looked around, and we needed a LoSec candidate, and our LoSec candidate had to pull out last year. And the year before that, we had hands. And this year, well, the CSM 8 has done what CSM 8's done. They've been honest that LoSec isn't the focus of any of the members. Some of them have reached out to us, they've listened to us. The developers have reached out to us and listened to us. We've gotten cool things. We've gotten like tags with SEC, which are pretty cool. So things have happened, but there's no one who's saying, hey, low sec's at the top of my list. And when I speak, I say that I'm low sec first. And when I see something, when I hear something, when something's proposed from CCP, it's low sec is how I think of it. It's how I filter that information. And instead of hoping somebody's going to step forward, I decided that, if you want something, you have to go for it. And I might as well make the effort because at the end of the day, I put that effort into something that meant something to me, and that's getting low sec in front of CCP.
Yeah, I mean, no one's going to represent Lusek unless someone steps up, and I think we now actually have you and Funky Bacon representing Lusek, and possibly Mangala Solaris as well, who said she would or he would do something for faction warfare and keep faction warfare mindful in his, but I haven't read his post yet.
Yeah, he cares about us. I mean, he has a lot on his plate. He's got ganked fleets, and he's doing the CSM, and RVB is such a huge, huge presence that even though they fight in high sec, they come into low sec, they go into null, and they do lots of stuff. But he's always been a good ear for us, even though he doesn't sell himself as a low sec or a faction warfare candidate. He said, hey, talk to me. I'll at least listen. I'll at least try to throw things. And that's a lot it's a lot. And I'm glad that he did that. But we need to take care of ourselves. We are a nice chunk of the game. Wormholes got 2 people into the CSM last year. So there's absolutely no reason why we should not have someone representing low sec. And that's pirates, that's faction warfare, that's all the stuff that happens between high sec and null sec. We're a chunk of the game, and we need our representation.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, it is a big chunk of the game, and as we were chatting before the podcast started, you can argue nullsec is the place to get fights all you want, but the fact isn't. If you want a quick fight, lowsec is exactly where you need to be. I mean, Inia, as we chatted last week and week before and countless weeks, Inia constantly, just one system constantly pulls from anywhere from 500 to 1,000 kills a day, and has in fact during the October, November, the Halloween War, when the big fights were going on there, Inia was hitting 1,400 kills a day, and that was with the massive fights going on LSEC. And we're saying, "God, hey, we're still here, CCP, we're here, cover us too." And we did get a no ignored
Yeah,
a bit, and
definitely.
we're still a wee bit sour about it, but at the same time, the big fights get the press
Well, I think a
publicity.
lot of us are. They do. They're exciting, and the big ships come out, and there's thousands upon thousands of people that come in. And nullsec is a fascinating concept. The whole player-owned space, and the players battling each other for their space, and it's a beautiful concept. It's very, very interesting. And fighting in low sec is hot and intense, and it's going, but the difference is it's kind of fast. We do our thing, and we fight, and we're done. And we don't have that long story that nullsec has, but we have our stories. We have hundreds and hundreds of smaller, immediate stories that have affected people and the things that people are doing every day. But it's marketing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, faction warfare, I know, and indeed piracy gangs as well. When you lose a ship, your station usually isn't that far. You can go, you can reshape, you can get back in the fight again, and it's quick. And that's the thing as well, is you can get back in the fight, and you might say, oh, a battle might only last at tops. I'm talking in faction warfare. You're probably talking anywhere from 1 minute to 5 minutes would be our average battle length. But an engagement might last 2 hours. That's the thing. While the battles are small and tiny, they are quick. They are bloody. They are aggressive, and the engagement as a result of one battle could be fleets playing with each other over the course of 2 hours. Fleet. I've come home and fleet had to FC for 4 hours straight just to manage one engagement.
Definitely. Or when your fleet goes out and you fight and you reship and people come and catch up. We're out. We're 20, 30, 40 jumps away from home. The FC's like, go reship. I don't care what you get into. We're going to keep going. And we're going to keep going until we're done. Whether that's tired, whether that's we're all dead, we're going to And that's what we enjoy. Like, we enjoy that fighting. That's a lot of reason why we're in LoSec. You know, people go, well, you know, you don't have any reason for what you're doing. Well, we don't need a reason because we like it. We want to be there fighting. We want to be out in space. You know, my boys have philosophy that if they're in space, they're going to get fights, so they're not going to dock up a lot. And they just float around in space and they get fights. And that's why they're here and that's what they're playing for. And that's one of the things that makes LoSec great.
Yeah, and I guess the reason to do it is that we enjoy it, and if you're not enjoying a game and what you're doing in the game, why bother playing it? And because we enjoy it so much, we're still here. We still put tons and tons of time into it, and I know I'm sure you've put tons of time into your exploits. I think your thread you mentioned you do you run a market down there, which is an incredible amount of time because I've done it myself.
Yes.
It requires an incredible. I mean, I do something like I managed the ammo in India for a while. I kept the ammo up to stock, and it's just like it's so draining just to do something that small.
Well, it is, but one of the reasons I started the market was, again, it was need. Everybody was hopping into the high sec system and going to the main station there because in Molden Heath there's a main area and there's like 2 level 4 mission agents. So there's a lot of mission running going on. So here my boys are. They're flashy red, and they're constantly jumping into high sec. And they're going into high sec and buying stuff that's way overpriced and coming back. And you know, I like logistics. I like doing other things. I like industry. I like building things. I like putting things together. And Sard used to run a market, and he had stopped. And it was kind of like the remains were left over, and everybody was lamenting that there had been this market, and it was so great. And I decided to give it a try. At the very worst, I lost disc. And it's been almost a year, and it's been incredibly, incredibly successful. I probably roll about 10 billion ISK a week in stuff selling through that market. And I'm really pleased with it. It's been a huge venture. I run about 650 orders for the most part there to keep things stocked, and it's all for PvP for the most part.
Yeah, and I mean it helps provide a lot of other people with content, and that's the thing we talk about having. There are players in Eve, I guess, and there's content generators in Eve, and a content generator could be an FC who decides to go attack a Poco to draw out a larger fleet to get a big battleship fight, like we talked about 2 weeks ago on the show. Or it could be someone like yourself who's keeping a market maintained so that people can get into a fight easier, or it could be someone who, forgets to pay a bill.
Yeah. But yeah, I do little things like I run a booster as well because I noticed one of my court mates was always going to his booster guy and he'd have to make orders and he would get his boosters in a week or two. So I like industry and I really wanted to run a POS. It was like a great reason to do this thing. So I started doing boosters, and now I supply boosters to the region. And like my boys never go into battle without drugs because they can always get them. They don't have to worry about waiting a week or two to get them. I always have backlogs that are held back just for them, so they always have what they need. And that kind of stuff makes everyone happy, and then everyone's more productive. And if people are productive, just everything's better.
Yeah, I mean we in faction warfare keep a lot of ships on contract, as do most alliances, and we have what we like to call derp fittings. So the biggest, most famous one of is of course the derptron, which is like a 1.2 mil 8tron, and there's a derp slasher, there's a derp merlin, there's a derp kestrel, there's a few different ones. So cheap, you throw them out, and you can get a fleet out there that can do something in seconds, and that's about.
Yeah, that's really cool. I found out about that actually a little bit ago that there was a lot of fit ships on contracts. I know that faction warfare systems tend to have a lot of good shopping. Like you can get yourself refit, you can get new ammo. But now I've learned that they have this whole contract market, which is really exciting. So we've actually been paying attention to that, and now when we're losing ships in these faction warfare areas, we're looking at the contract market to see what we might be able to pick up to get us moving a little bit faster.
Well, if you ask me nicely, I might be able to point you in a few different fittings for you. I may or may not have the list of the Caldari Tempest ones anyway, and a few of the Galente ones, so you know.
I guess I'll have to be friendly.
But well, given that we Armored Purgatorum does a jump freighter service from Jeddah into INEA and OICX, which are currently the two main Caldari staging systems. We've also set up sinos in place now to run to the two main Galente staging systems, which is Villarreal, Nanamelia, and possibly EHA, but I have to check that one. I think we just move our INEA sino for that. And part of that is to help get those contract ships in, and like Black Frog can take a hike when our prices are concerned. We have them a quarter of the price for a full jump freighter, so let's just say business is pretty good.
Uh, Oh no, and that's great. I mean, that's how you get people into space. A lot of these questions that I've been receiving have been, how are we going to get people into space? How are we going to get people into faction warfare? And a lot of the answers are, we have to do it ourselves. We have to spend some time making hubs, running markets, doing services. While everybody wants to be out destroying everything that they can find at every given moment, at the same time, if you are inclined to it or somebody's interested in it, you have to put the time in. You have to take care of your community, and that's what it is. It's a community. If we don't pick up the trash, no one's going to pick it up for us.
No, definitely, and Losec is one of those places that you've got to put a little bit of an extra mile in, because there's no safe way. You can't put a pass up and expect it to be safe for production in Losec. You have to stick it somewhere really, really quiet, and at which point you're still going to have to haul the finished product. And the guys who put hours into logistics it's just, I think it's much more vital than what the high sec one is. Or no,
I mean,
null sec
it's a
logistics
lot of
rather.
energy. I mean, it's a lot of energy, but I think that's fantastic as well. Like, I don't like my POS being attacked at all. I wish everybody would leave it alone and never take it down. But it's so great that somebody can decide, you know what, I'm going to knock that POS over for whatever reason they decide to. Sometimes it's my own corporation because they weren't paying attention to standings, but most of the time it's somebody else. And then that brings us a fight. So I have a reason to have a POS to make boosters. And now we have a reason to fight.
I'd imagine you have I'd imagine someone in your corp got a shouting out for that one. A little bit of a disapproving look.
Yeah, it was a little bit like, why is my, I jumped in the system, I was like, why is my POS reinforced? And they're like, oh, that's yours? I'm like, yes, it's mine. It's even named after me. I was like, sorry, like, I don't know, they just wanted to spit, and they bashed my POS too, along with the other people they were bashing. It was pretty
Yeah.
funny. They felt bad.
So I want to get on to your areas of focus here. This is the interesting bit, I guess, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So residents of Losec need to be able to support themselves outside of faction warfare. And PvE, of course, we all know what the PvE options are. You've got your exploration and those kind of sites and missions, and of course mining. Yeah, mining in Losec. But at the same time, the options there aren't very great. I know from personal experience. I make my Iskin incursions or market trading because, let's face it, even faction warfare, I don't go out and plex. I plex as a fleet. I don't go out purely to make LP for money because it is almost as boring as mining.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there needs to be content. When I had suggested turning the low-level complexes for exploration back into low-sec, to put one of tens and two of tens back into the low-sec exploration system since they were taken out of static complexes, the goal was to have something people could scan down and get some money from. I'm not asking for everything to be, fonts of ISK and so for low-sec to be coded in, ISK and honey, but we need stuff. And when I asked CCP Master Plan about that at FanFest, I also asked if we could get all the way up to like 7 of 10s. Can we have some more? Like, low sec's dangerous. Getting people out in space doing exploration gets people out in space where they can be hunted down and killed, or where they can be put themselves at risk. They have to make a decision to combat fit their ships so that they can protect themselves or kill who comes in, or they're going to lose that delicious, delicious DD plex that they found. And so I wanted a little bit more stuff. And of course, I really want PvE to just be looked at. It's so neglected, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at other areas of the game, high security space, of course, there's an absolute shitload of PvE content, and especially with the Sisters of Eve missions. I'm camped out there at the moment running a few as well, and there is the main Osmond system for the level 4s, you're talking anywhere from 150 to 300 in local, and the systems around it, you could probably have another 300. But if you go to low
Yeah,
sec,
and I'm like,
you're not going to find any amount of people doing that PvE content, and while we don't necessarily want that many, an option would be nice.
well, or an option just for us, like more things for us to do in our own space that gets us out in space where people can hunt us down. Because I know at least when we roam, we look at the ships in space and we go towards those areas. So anything that gets people out in space doing things, whether they're going to be traveling around, they're going to be shopping at markets, they're going to be doing missions. I'm really big into the whole why can't we have more actual NPC pirate stuff in low sec? Things that would draw people in. It just gets them in space. I mean, it's dangerous. Okay, we're not going to have 60 people in every single low sec system like you do when you're in high sec with a ship sitting on the gate. It's not that type of place. But people should be like, oh, maybe I'll give that a try. Maybe I will do that. At least, and it will get them out there. Right now, it's just, maybe, we have level 5s. Okay.
I mean, it's risk
Level
versus
5s are
reward.
mythical.
I mean, at the end of the day, it literally is just risk versus reward. At the moment, the risk is most definitely there. No one's going to argue with that. But is the reward there? I mean, if you're faction warfare and you're quite happy to sit in a cloaky warp stab plexer all day long, sure, the reward is most definitely there and the risk is nil. But if you're not, then it's
Oh, exactly.
it's not really. I mean, you
And
can't.
that's all the questions.
Yeah, exactly. And
Somebody was saying, yeah, with faction warfare, like we need more PvE or PvP motivated ISK making. And there's the whole fact that you should take other people's stuff. But, what if one of the biggest questions has been how can outlaws, like how can negative sex status people actually generate ISK? Like killing each other, how can we generate ISK without us completely and totally, messing things up?
because
And
of
my
course,
brainstorming idea today at work, instead of working, I was much too busy thinking about Eve. And I was like, well, what if we did a combo? Faction warfare is, it was a faction warfare idea. It wasn't a non-Losec idea, but it's a faction warfare idea. And I was like, well, what if faction warfare players, when they attacked pirates, got some type of LP payout? Because obviously the NPCs can't have their military to protect them like they do in high sec, because if an outlaw jumps into high sec, the NPC police comes after them. So what if automatically part of being faction warfare was getting a little bit policing for shooting outlaws? And my idea was that maybe that would make faction warfare players more interested in engaging higher up, like more cruisers or what have you, because then they're going after the pirates and they're going to get an LP payout for it, which gives the pirates the content of, a wider range of ships to fight. I didn't know if it was a good idea or not, but that's what popped into my head today.
well, I mean, the way we look at it is when you capture Plex, it moves the system back and forth, the contested bar. If a pirate completes that, how are we supposed to, if we've pirates running those complexes that we need to capture the systems, how are we supposed to maneuver the systems? Because obviously a pirate isn't an unaligned entity. They can't, they can't.
Yeah, they shouldn't be able to. They shouldn't be able to get LP from the faction warfare people. I just don't think if you're not going to get into faction warfare, I don't think that the pirates should be able to capture the complexes. I just don't. I don't understand how that would validly work.
Yeah, I mean, those complexes need a wee bit of work, I think. I mean, we were chatting to Fozzie. Fozzie was on, dropped in the stream last week, and we were saying about, increasing the LP payouts slightly for, PvP kills, and he says, well, actually, if you're in tier 5 and you make a kill, the LP payouts for a kill is as high as we can allow. And of course, with the LP payout scaling, it really does make sense, and we don't see that high LP payout whenever we're sitting, borderline tier 1, tier 2 most of the time, and even in tier 3. You notice a difference in tier 3, and I imagine Mimitar quite enjoy being in tier 4 90% of the time right now. But
Yeah, it's like a cheer goes out.
yeah, pretty much. It's you kill something in PvP, and faction warfare is supposed to be a war, yet you have to sit and orbit this little
It
beacon.
is.
And you're sitting flying around the beacon, you're
Yeah,
still flying around the beacon, still flying around the beacon.
yeah, and it speaks to while the beacons, have a purpose and they generate some type of content. Obviously, they're not the content that's engaging. And CCP likes to talk about engaging content and retention and the things that keep people going and world building. They need to spend some time revisiting faction warfare. They did things to it. There's more ships, there's more kills, there's more PvP than ever. That's great, but there are tweaks. They need to come and revisit it, and that's the type of stuff that we want to say to them when people are raising their points to CCP. We want to say, hey, we understand that you worked on this last year, but you really shouldn't not work on it again. You shouldn't not come back and revisit it. There's things going on. You have players here. Pay attention to us, and that's why we need LoSec reps.
Yeah, I mean, complexes are in themselves a great strategic asset. Speaking as a fleet commander, the ability to dictate what ships your opponent can bring to the fight, and also the ability to, dictate whether they're coming in on you at zero, or whether they're coming in at you in range, or you've got to work out then, or you're got to keep your enemy guessing then whether you're going to be at zero on them in blaster range, or whether you're going to be at 120 kilometers sitting in sniper cormorants. It's
Yeah,
the gates themselves are a great
yeah, the
content
tweaking is
generator,
great.
but at the same time, we hate orbiting the buttons. And like, I think Virtue Office said there in the chat, faction warfare and non-faction warfare LoSec are again two big different types of space when you take the mechanics into consideration, because of course faction warfare systems flip back and forth depending on the the warzone control. Plus, you have these faction warfare sites where you can go, if I want to fight, there's a high chance because that site's open, somebody's in there, I'm going to go there, I'm going to need to fight. And the rest of LoSec, you haven't got that. You have to get your combat probers out, and you have to get your descanning skills a bit more in line and stuff like that.
And which is good in the way that it's different. You have choices about what you're going to do, and you have to approach things differently. So it's good that non-faction warfare and faction warfare, LoSec, are different, but at the same time, we still live together. So we need to make everything better, and we need to at least try to make it better, or at least try to figure out ways that it might be improved. And I mean, we have so many ideas. Like, there are ideas in chat, and there are ideas coming up on the forums, and just the regular forums have so much, and we need attention. And it all rolls back around to the fact that we haven't been getting a lot or very much attention, and we need to try to push for it. We may not get it, but we need to be in somebody's face saying, hey, we're here. Why don't we matter? Why don't we get, one thing? I mean, let's start at the bottom. Give us one thing and we'll work our way up.
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen if no one's there to ask for it.
Yeah, and that's what's so great to see so many LoSec candidates running, and of course with you coming from the more piracy background and the likes of Funky Bacon, who's coming from a much more factional warfare background, if we can get both of you on, it's going to be absolutely fantastic, and I hope I'm going to definitely look into getting Funky Bacon on as well to see his thoughts about faction warfare and have a few goes at him for his Mittani articles, and at the same time, of course.
Most definitely. Like, the wormhole candidates have stood up and said, we're the smallest group in the game, and we got 2 candidates onto CSM last year. There's absolutely no reason why anyone else can't do it. And they're right. There's no reason why we can't do it. Because people speaking for LoSec is going to improve LoSec. It's either put your LoSec candidates in, or no one's going to talk for us. I mean, there's kind of a very clear line there. So it's up to the voters. But we're here because we want to be here, because we want to scream LoSec constantly and everything that we have to deal with. We know that it's not going to be 100% LoSec 100% of the time. It should be, but it's not. But we have to be there to say something, and that's the whole reason why I'm here.
Yeah, and I want to get it. I couldn't hop onto one of your other topics here, which I think is kind of
Yes, sir.
about getting people in here. Because that's the thing as well, is we have to keep the players coming in. And I know, like you said, piracy and the whole pirate lifestyle, it can be a very scary thing for new players, and it can be a very scary thing for someone whose life has been protected by Concord for quite a while. And I have a friend of mine, and his corporation has done mining, they've done industry, and just over the last 2 months, I encouraged my friend to get out and do some PvP, and he's now got the other guys going out, and they're getting used to it. They're still flying new stuff, they're losing ships, they're killing ships. But they've just kind of taken that step to go out and go, how do we try this? And Gilligan mentioned, and it's also in your notes as well, a new introductory experience for players, intriguing them to get out there. And that really is what we have to do. We have to get something, whether it be a tutorial or whether it be, a way of getting players in new zones out there to try it, just to
Oh,
get
I
the
agree.
people out there.
Yeah, last year, and I have to dig up my blog post about it. Celerity and I, who he's on Twitter, and he's a nullsec player, but he's really big into new player experience and stuff. Had this idea, and I called it like second tier tutorial missions. And the purpose of them was to give people kind of a heads up that things are even there, because we were teaching Anthony about DScan. We wound up talking to him and giving him videos, and somebody asked me, how did I learn DScan? Well, I learned it because I was out in a fleet, and this is how I've actually taught other people. You take them out in the fleet, and you make the stuff appear on scan so that they see it, so they learn what the things are and how to use it. You play hide and go seek and etc. Not everybody's going to have a group to do that, but if they had like these, when you went to a LoSec gate or something, Aura pops up and she's like, "Hi, here's some other resources that you may be interested in about doing these things," and people be like, "Oh, really?" And they'll look for it. I mean, you can't lead a horse to water, but maybe you can shove its head in and make it drink, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony suggested again getting low players in through the mission arc, and choice for some.
Yes. The pirate mission arcs, the pirate arcs are really, really easy to do. Like, lots of people do them in assault frigates, and you have to go into nullsec and do all this stuff, but you do these things in assault frigates. That's the type of content that wouldn't be bad. Something that someone can do in a low value ship. And then maybe they can get some tutorial overlay to suggest things like warping out your pod, which it seems like new players take a long time to learn to do.
Here's one.
And, oh, go on.
Here's one of the things as well. I mean, how many high sec players actually know those mission arcs exist and know that there's a mission that starts you off in high sec, it works you through it, and takes you into low sec?
Yeah, they don't.
You know?
And well, that's one of my true pet peeves in the game, is that like the Evilopedia, the wiki that CCP has made, is so bad. It needs so much love and attention, because CCP has this fantastic resource that players should automatically be referencing that is horribly incomplete.
And
So it's lots of picking, but that would be so great.
you have the sheer volume of people, and this is a big annoyance to me. The sheer volume of new players, they get redirected towards faction warfare as their gateway to PvP. Now that is fine, that is fantastic, because it's so new player friendly with the frigates and stuff like that. The problem is they get redirected towards the militia. They're told you can make lots of money here. You get nice cheap ships, you can fly frigates to your heart's content, you can lose them, but you make so much money it doesn't matter. Nobody ever tells them, or there's no tutorials or no explanation how faction warfare works.
Yes, and another issue, one of the main reasons that bothers me isn't because I don't think faction warfare isn't a great gateway. It's because the standing loss is so extreme and very easy to happen, with people not even realizing that they tank their standings and they can't get into chunks of HiveSec and they don't even realize it. And like you said, it needs some type of intro to explain to people, or maybe the entire standings mechanics, which goes right back to PvE, needs to be looked at again, because it's so hard to recover those standings. It's painfully, painfully hard.
It is very hard. I mean, I take security status hit in faction warfare, of course, because I shoot at pirates first. I'm not going to run away just because it's a pirate. In my case, if they've come into one of my military complexes, they're getting shot. End of day. But
Very good.
when it comes
That's
to
exactly how it
things
should be.
like, when it comes to shooting an AWOXer, okay? I mean, I find myself FCing a fleet and somebody with messed up standings has seen, he's a pirate, I'm going to shoot him. And I'm sitting there, well, like, if I leave the field, suddenly my fleet has no FC. So I can either leave the field and have to come all the way back round for the same player still to be there and to try shooting at me again, because 90% of the time they don't bother reading local chat, or I can just order the entire fleet to blow them off the field. And instead of my fleet being ineffective, they lose one Merlin. You know?
Yeah, I
And
mean, like tag, yeah.
when it push comes to shove, every single time I've shot the person, I have cleaned him off the field because my fleet's more important than him. And the standings loss are horrible. It is property. I mean, it's not so bad for a ship, but it's -7. It's not -0.7. It's -7 for killing, or something. It's like
Oof.
something -7, -8 for killing a faction
That's
warfare
worse than
pod.
pod killing.
That
Yeah,
so it.
and
I mean,
that's ridiculous.
with State Protectorate, I killed one pod and jumped from 1.2 with State Protectorate down to like -7.8. It took me 6 months to get that back up. I could have got it up faster if I did more complexes, but I was just like, no, it'll go up when it goes up.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. Like, standings in general are just awful. And again, it rolls back to an untouched PvE mechanic that really needs to be looked at again. We're in Eve now. You know, we're in year 11 of this game. This needs to be looked at. We need to say, hey, things that have been static for this long, maybe that standings hit with the huge penalties or the slow regains, maybe we need to figure out some way to make this better for people. Tags for sec have been incredibly, incredibly popular, and they haven't done what people thought. A lot of people thought that was just going to send pirates into high sec, killing nonstop. There are some that do that. One of them's in your chat room. But most of us stayed where we were, and we kept our negative sex status. But it helped all of those people who were tanking down from going to a point where they couldn't recover. And that improved their life. That made a lot of people less averse to going and fighting. And, you know, taking a standings hit or two. Okay, well, I can patch that up. People need to be able to patch it. It may not have to be super easy, but it needs to be better than it is right now. It's bad right now.
I would like to see the price of those tags come down a bit, and I guess that's just down to availability of them, because it's exceptionally expensive. I think it's about 480 mil to bring yourself from
It is, but you know
-5 up
what?
to 0. It's worth it. I think it's worth it. I've paid it myself
No,
recently.
they could just come and get them, but you can come and do it yourself. That's the
Or you
best
can go
part.
get
Like
the
these
tags, that's the same thing, yep.
NPCs, yeah, they spawn with great regularity. They're not hard to find, and not you got to put a cruiser out there to kill them most of the time, but they're completely killable. Like, you can going and ratting for tags for sec, which the tag rats themselves are huge sec gains, and then the tag itself will give you more sec gain. Like, that is so much better than when we used to have to go and spend a week in the lowest depths of nullsec that you could find, chaining systems nonstop
Yeah.
for 7 days.
I've
You
seen
know, so it's
people
better. It's not super easy, but it's better.
I've seen pirates sitting in incursion fleets just to get the sex status, because you get the sex. I think you get a sex status boost even if you're not on grid, but you don't get paid if you're not on grid. So I've seen the odd time,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that a pirate will be sitting in another wing, just sitting there going, I need security status. If I undock, I'm going to get killed.
Yeah, it's, you know, it is what it is. Like, you can do it better. You can get stack gain. I don't think it should be easy. It shouldn't be instantaneous. It shouldn't be, you know, snap of the fingers. But it shouldn't be so terrible that someone just goes, you know, I'd rather set the house on fire than deal with that. It shouldn't be that bad that the players completely turn away and say, no, I would prefer to suffer and never have access to that part of the game again than to actually make this happen. Like, a little bit of a better balance.
Yeah, and people are saying in chat that sometimes when they say PvP, it's 3d6 versus me, and that is a very, very common thing, especially when you're getting into it. The first thing I always say to people is get a corporation who are doing a bit of PvP if
Yes.
you want to get into seriously. Secondly, is get on their TeamSpeak. They cannot help you if you're not on TeamSpeak. I have my faction warfare character back in Caldari Colonial Defense Military at the moment, and it astounds me the number of people that are online in that corporation and the number who are on comms. The difference, it's roughly 10-20% of the people online are actually on comms, and a lot of them are actually out in space as well, out there in ships. And you're like, well, how are we supposed to help you? And then you get people complaining, "Oh, I'm getting killed. Why do you not come to help me?" You're like, really? But get yourself in a corporation, okay? Get out in a fleet with a group of players. The other thing I will say is, like Sugar Cow was saying, check your D scan, okay? Your D scan is your most important tool in PvP, okay? Um, in faction warfare, most of the PvP happens inside complexes. So if you're a new player trying to get into PvP without trying faction warfare, I would say go to the faction warfare systems. You don't have to join up, but use your D-scan when you get to the sites. They appear on your overview automatically. Use your D-scan and it will tell you what's in there. Set it to 20 million kilometers and that will scan into the site. It'll give you what's coming out of warp into the site as well. And if you're after that, I guess the only real thing you can do is experience. Because if you're in an Algos, for example, you've got range dictation. So a tackle frigate isn't going to stay there and fight you unless he's got friends in local. So D-scan and your local are your two best friends when getting started in PvP, I think.
And also, he asked, how do you find a corporation? And it's like, well, check the forums, check the recruitment, look around for who's doing what, and always convo the people who killed you. Some of them are going to be jerks, but some of them aren't. And the ones who aren't are often going to give you gems, might give you help, they might direct you to a good place to go. So, take it, send them some convos. If it is nothing but trash, close it. But there are going to be people who will talk to you and help you out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, most corporations have public chats as well where you can go and chat to the people, and that's a great way to get to know them and find out what kind of people they are, is just by literally joining their public channels and chatting to them.
Because
And to,
people who are interested, well, I'm sorry.
no, go on, go on.
Just saying, the people who are interested they're going to help you out. They're going to even direct you. They're going to feed your corpse. They're going to say, hey, well, why don't you try these people? They're going to try to because we want people to stay because we need to shoot at them. If they go away, we can't shoot at them, so we need them to come back.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of corporations. I mean, I know my own corporation, Arm and Purgatorium. We'll take new players on. We'll give you the ships. We'll show you the ropes. We'll show you how to make the ISK in high sec that's required to live in low sec. That's one of the things we do. I'm not sure about you guys. I think you'd be the same, I guess. Well, I guess you are if you took it on.
Clement's intent. I take in newbies, like personally, I have my chat room and the people who hang out there, they indulge me. So I'll take in new players. I actually get them from my blog from the most part. It's interesting is where I get them. I tend to get new players for my blog and they'll contact me in game or they'll come to chat and I'll help them out as I can. My corporation itself is not a training corporation. I can't offer to take them into my corp and into that aspect of my lifestyle, but there are several other training corps out there. You have corps that are focused on frigates and piracy. You have inductive corps like Stay Frosty and Brave Newbies who will take everyone in and teach them and support them into the game. You have faction warfare corps that do it. So you have lots of options out there, and I may not be able to give you my corporation ticker, but I'll try to get you a corporation ticker if I can. I'll try to advise you that way.
Yeah, I mean, another concern that's just come up in the chat is don't corps instantly assume a spy or an easy mark, and I think there are corporations that are really paranoid out there, but I think for the most part what they do is they request an API key and they'll have a quick wee scan through your messages and your wallets to make sure you're not. It's nothing hasn't. There's nothing fishy, and while that's exceptionally easy to get around with a spy account, it's not really a concern. I know I've handled recruitment for quite a bit, and do you know what? If a spy comes in, it's just going to be it's a content generator because it's going to challenge us as a fleet. It's going to challenge us as a fleet commander, and at the end of the day, we'll work it who it is eventually. Easy mark. I say no because the last thing you want to do is get a reputation for AWOXing new players, and AWOXing, AWXing, is basically when you shoot a friendly, for those who don't know what it is. And if you get a reputation for it, you're quickly going to lose friends, and you're quickly going to find it hard when you actually want new players to get, or new players, whether they be 10 years old or a month old. It's going to be very hard to get them in because people post on recruitment threads. If they've picked you up from a
Oh, they
recruitment
do.
thread and you've AWOXed them, and once you've got them out there in their most expensive ship, they're gonna go and complain about it.
Yeah, you tend not to see AWOXing in an active corporation with active members and they're out doing things. Anthony, who's asked you the question, he's my newbie. One of the first interactions he had with other players was someone tried to AWOX him, and what they were doing is they were contacting like the newbies in rookie chat and inviting them to another channel and offering them stuff and getting them to pretty much come to low second, and they were killing them. And they're doing this to couple day old characters, hour old characters, and people who haven't been in Eve are used to corporations which are more inclusive, like sure, or guilds or whatever you call them. Everybody's like, yeah, sure, you come, you join, you don't kill your guild members, or in Eve you do kill your corporation members. So he's been very cautious about that because his first experience was bad.
Well,
But a established corp like your own, they have a reputation that they're more interested in maintaining than killing somebody's ibis.
yeah, I mean CCP takes a very, very, very dim view on people pulling that kind of stunt in rookie chat, and that's something that I've seen come up more recently because I've seen people trying to scam and actually putting scam contracts and stuff in rookie chat, and they don't usually last very long. But I can understand completely how Anthony would get paranoid and be very, very cautious, and it can ruin a player's experience and just completely put them off a game if that's their first experience of a game. And I guess when you're coming into Eve, you have to have a bit more of a brass pair, shall we say, than other games. But at the same time, you should not be dragged through the dirt like that by people, and I think that's entirely inappropriate for people to be doing that. But and like you says, I think part of it as well with most corporations, you have to bring in new players to survive. It is a fact of life that you cannot keep a corporation going without bringing in new players. And one of our best players, not one of our best players per se, but one of our most committed players, a guy called Kibbit. Um, he he killed a 190 mil Daredevil on day 12 in a T1 crappy meta fit courser because he says coursers are usually fitted with pulse. I'm going to fit mine for sniping or something like that, and he completely played the Daredevil and chewed it to pieces just because he looked at the game mechanics. And but the thing about it was he was given the chance. He was told how the Daredevil worked. He was told how the Courser worked, and he went out and says, "I'm going to beat that guy." And we know
Yep, and
because
you
of it,
don't scold
because
them for losing.
yeah, because we helped that member along. He's now one of our committed members, and that's how you breed new players. And you kind of can mold people. I mean, new players, we love new players, we really do, because you can mold them the way you want. You can show them your play style. They're not going to come in with this attitude, this is how you play Eve, do it this way. And,
They're fun. They're fun. They're really enjoying Eve again, and you're like, oh, this stuff is fun.
yeah, I mean, I love taking a step back sometimes and just going back to the basics with frigates, because I mean, I stick mostly in destroyers, even in faction warfare. And sometimes, though, I just it's nice just to take a new player out and go back to basics and take it relaxed. And you're not necessarily looking for a fight, but if there's an easy fight, you'll take it rather than throwing yourself at everything. And it's nice, you know. Plus, I mean,
Oh yeah.
we said earlier, Eve's a social game, and if you're not meeting new people, Eve can get boring, I guess.
Yeah, you have to actually talk to people sometimes, but that's something I like doing, so it works out. And that's how I acquire newbies and have them in Twitch chats.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what's wrong with a little independence in Eve? Nothing's wrong with a little independence in Eve, but at the same time, most people, the reason why most people drop a game these days is that they have no one to play it with, because single player experiences are not great in games anymore. Most MMOs force you into some way of doing stuff solo. And while you can survive perfectly well as a solo independent player in Eve, I mean there are hundreds of Eve players who do it. It's a lot easier to get into PvP if you're in a group. It's a lot easier to get into incursions. I mean, you can't do an incursion as a solo player, and for PvE experience, incursions is one of the most exhilarating. I mean, there's nothing like getting, nothing to get the adrenaline going in player versus environment is when your 3 billion or 15 billion-esque Vindicator drops through armor and into structure.
Yes, and they're squealing on comms as a lodge is like, we have you.
I've done it
You should
before.
broadcasted.
That's when it's when you broadcast 4 times and they haven't caught you. And
Well,
that's
I can understand screaming at that point.
oh, I shouted at them. I shouted at them down the comms, and then the SC had his turn.
Good.
So
You gotta take care of your people.
oh, you really do. We're kind of gonna keep drifting into because we've been batting between 2 and 3. They're kind of mutually inclusive on our program and topics. So if you've any other suggestions, folks, that you wanna hear us chat about and delve into, or for Sugar to write down in her magic notepad that she's got here, start throwing them into Twitch chat, and we'll definitely have a look at them now as well. Of course.
Yes, G-Docs are magical because Google is magical and they control my life.
Ah, G-Docs are fantastic. And I guess it's back to the age-old adage, the only stupid questioner in this case idea is the one that hasn't been given the chance to be aired and given the, you know, what do you call it?
Yeah.
Chance to be worked at, because it might in initial thought be, that's really stupid, it's never going to work. But actually when you sit down, some of the great ideas come from something really stupid.
Well, and it's just another way of looking at things. A lot of times, especially when you have new players and they haven't been playing Eve, well, they're like, well, why don't we have this? And why doesn't it work this way? And you're sitting there like, but it always has worked that way. You could do something different. And so sometimes it's just really great ideas that come out.
Yeah, I'm trying to reply to a tweet here at the same time. But so ideas fire them at us. I mean, we talked about with when Excalentis was on, we chatted about battleship content and big ship content, and sometimes people feel there isn't enough big ship content in Eve, and then you look at something like Inia at the start of January or end of January, and Galantic Militia were going out and hitting pokos, and they were hitting posses and reinforcing them just to pull our big ships out for the fights. And the thing about it is the content, the ships are there. It's about sometimes having people to step up to the content, and I think I would like to see something where the content is there already in place somehow, that people can take battleships and bigger ships too, but not necessarily so that players have to kick a content off with 36 hours for Strontium to run out, and then they actually get their content.
Like kind of mini structures or something.
Yeah, maybe like a strategic structure. I mean, we have iHubs in faction warfare, but I kind of maybe structure that you kill it, you gain 5% more of the system, and they spawn randomly, and enough hit points to
Yeah.
warrant bringing out, battle cruisers to it, or even just a cruiser fleet in faction warfare is still something that is like, oh, cruiser fleet, what?
Well, it's different because, like for me, a lot of what we fly a lot of cruisers. You know, we'll fly battle cruisers sometimes. The warp speed changes haven't made people overly happy. So you're kind of like, oh. And then, frankly, a lot of people function in the IS war. So, you now have a battleship and it's slow, and it was already slow and ungangly, but now it's even slower into warp, it's slower out of warp, it's slower through warp. And the question becomes, do we want to do this? And sometimes the speed part is painful, and you don't want to take your battleship like out roaming. But the question becomes, do we want to have more structures to grind? It's hard. It's hard to try to get people into particular ships because people are very, very good at being the most effective and efficient that they can be. Well, I was talking to a member of Snuffbox, and they said, why should we fly battleships when we can fly Proteus? And we can get pretty much, huge tank and good DPS and more agility. We can get a really fantastic ship that doesn't have a lot of these drawbacks. And it's a good question. Why should they? And that's how the players are. Like every time you try to mold people in a direction, they're going to take the direction they actually want to take.
Well, I mean,
So again, we can only lay it out.
no,
Go
definitely.
on, sorry.
We've looked into before. We've started out trying to upgrade the battleship fleets just to have the ability, and just try take out a battleship to draw a battleship fight in faction warfare. And we started doing that, and within, like, we weren't doing it very often, but the fact that we as FCs were trying that and trying to get cruisers and battle cruiser fleets as opposed to frigates and destroyers, within a week and a half, India had gone from its usual anywhere between 0 and 20% contested up to like 60% contested, which for anyone will tell you is really, really high. And so we just had to turn around and say, look, you know what, we have to go back to frigates and destroyers, otherwise we are literally going to lose the system in another week, if not 3 or 4 days at the current rate it was progressing. And that's the kind of thing that at the same time we're all used to flying frigates and destroyers, so in faction warfare zones, if you're used to flying frigates and destroyers, is there a need for PvE or PvP battleship content that's ready there? Because
Well,
chances are,
that's maybe, yeah, maybe
ch-
it's an individual choice. Sorry.
yeah, yeah, no, but I mean, chances are most of the end users there have zero battleship skills, as is actually something that we find quite common, especially newer, well, not newer players,
Like,
but 6 months to a year players.
yeah, Vice over here was saying, isn't that what Pocos are for? Like, we will go and knock down a Poco because it's easier than a POS, just to see if we can get a fight. And you bring a big fleet for that, and that might be one of the big differences, and which doesn't mean a bad difference between faction warfare and non-faction warfare low set, where outside of faction warfare, you're going to see more ships, you're going to see more cruisers, you're going to see the battleships, you're going to see, a different range of ships out there fighting. Like we have in Molden Heath, the Planetary Conquest with Dust, and they are doing bombardments. So they're bringing fleets to do their bombardments with, and it's anything from battleships to cruisers. Lately, one group's been doing tons and tons of recons. It's like all the recons, every recon there is, and that's what they put on field. But you're getting a very diverse seat out there. That's not just frigates. And nothing's wrong with frigates. I mean, my Jaguar's my favorite ship in the world. But that may be something that I see more than you do. And I'm like, well, I see battleships and cruisers and battle cruisers all the time. But I also don't live inside of faction warfare. We're visitors. We come to get fights.
Yeah, I think one of the things is whenever we see cruiser fleets and battle cruiser fleets, we do escalate to meet them. And that's the thing, if there's a pirate cruiser fleet
Mm-hmm.
floating about, we'll go out and fight them because, you know, they're there, they're in our space, they're in our way most of the time. Camping in one of our medium plexes or something like that, and we'll go out and fight them. And so, but at the same time, if you took a frigate or destroyer fleet up, You wouldn't get a cruiser fleet coming out to meet you. You would get another frigate and destroyer fleet coming out to meet you. And that is one of the things about faction warfare, is that what is fielded is met 99% of the time by the exact same size fleet, but a size of fleet, that's, if it's two destroyer fleets, it'll be the second destroyer fleet will be built in the hopes of killing what they already know is in the first one.
And we know when we come to faction warfare, we know that, it's your home. You're going to reship and they're going to bring out a lot of smaller ships. And it's good, though. It gives us a lot to do when we're in that cruiser fleet because we have to think about what we're going to do. We know that there's a chance we're going to hit a lot of frigates. We know we're going to hit our hard counters just by the nature of the area that we're going into. But at the same time, faction warfare groups sometimes come roaming down, and they come roaming to other areas to get a different taste of the PvP. So, I mean, we don't want everything to be homogenized.
No, you need that variety, and high security space has the variety. Nullsec has the variety. Lowsec has a bit, but I think it just needs a bit more. And again, that risk versus reward to encourage people in there. Question from Anthony: do you think that CCP have only got such a small tutorial because they want new players to go out and figure out things for themselves? That is part of the uh, something that is more
New
valuable
player
than
experience.
Oh, okay.
What he's saying is that's part of the new player experience is more valuable than a more detailed tutorial. I think it comes from a lot of things. One is the simple fact that CCP didn't used to have a tutorial. They're like, here's a gun, here's a ship, and get out there. Their tutorial, therefore, is growing. It's, we've had ups and downs with CCP and when they're adding to things. But there's only so much information that you can feed to people. A lot of current players skip the tutorial that we have. A lot of them skip it. And then they're in rookie chat, they're in EVE University chat, they're in the NPC Corps, and they're asking for help for things that they would have learned if they had been in a tutorial. But people want to get in and they want to play the game and they want to start, and they skip these things. So there's a certain extent that you can tutorial all day long and people are not going to do it. That's another big problem.
Yeah, I mean, there's simple things in the tutorials like what. I mean, tutorial talks you through most of the electronic warfare modules and what they all do. They talk propulsion modules. They talk about the guns, the missiles, the armor, the tanks, the shield tanks. And if you actually read it, you could probably have a pretty good gist of how you fit up a ship as a result of it. The problem is that
But people
you
want to
skim read
play.
it. You want to play. You want to get. You don't want to sit and read this wall of text. You want to get out there and play. And corporations like Brave Newbies, Eve University, Red versus Blue, and the many other new player friendly corporations like Armored Purgatory, my own corp, Stay Frosty, Velour Accords, I think is a Galantic Militia one that's fairly new player friendly ish. There's a lot of them out there. There are a lot of them to help, and a player's going to be better explaining stuff in a tutorial most of the time. And I think it's
I
making sure people get that player help rather than the tutorial, I think, is the best way to teach people.
Yeah, and I mean that's a hard one because CCP doesn't want to promote any one corporation over the other, but somehow it needs to be made clear to people that they need to join corps. And one of the not often enough commented problems is NPC Corp chat. There are a lot of players who are in NPC Corp chat who have been there forever, and they are fearmongers, and they say to the new players, don't do it, don't join a corp, they'll kill you, they'll do all these terrible things, everything's horrible, stay by yourself, don't trust anybody, don't talk to anyone, don't do anything. And that doesn't help anything. So the very first interaction they're getting is people who've never left the NPC Corp who are screaming at them that they're going to be killed and everything's going to be terrible if they leave. Like, don't leave, don't leave, don't leave. And I don't know what we're going to do to counteract that, but we definitely need to get people, doing the whole multiplayer thing of the game.
I mean, I guess it's a bit like someone going to do a course in physics or something, and they walk in on day one. The person in the registration desk hands them a textbook and says, "There you go, job done. Read that, you'll be fine. Off you go." And
Yeah.
It's it
Um,
doesn't work. You can't learn a degree, and like Anthony says, he learns more from a single conversation with a vet than looking up stuff from the tutorial, and I think that's true because sitting down with a teacher will tell you more than that textbook will.
well, one of the comments in chat right now is, public rooms by people CCP certified as like fleet commanders, and that was actually I wrote a blog post I think I did about that after we had the last live event, the one that went really bad where CCP like took everybody to see, I guess, the new sites and everybody died and no one knew what was going on and why this happened and all this other kind of stuff. My comment when that happened was we need more organizations for the players. Like we have these people who do these public events and who are great at it. Why aren't we tapping into this? Why aren't we having some type of ISD public event where people can be the FC, can help with that interaction? It's not going to be perfect, but they're going to get a little bit more like humane action. And I sometimes wonder why CCP doesn't tap the player base a little bit more for some of these resources that are very people intensive, because they have lots of players who want to help out, who would be willing to put in 2 hours to do a live event fleet, once every 3 months. Because if you have a lot of people doing that, you can do one every 2 weeks or something. And so I think that that's a fantastic idea, and I think that we're a resource CCP should tap more.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That I mean, I'd take public rooms out, no problem. I mean, I have a problem taking public rooms out of militia chat because when it comes to fighting a war zone control, half of them are, there are a lot of spies in there and they get into the fleet. At the same time, if I'm taking a fleet out of the general public, out of a rookie system or something like that, I have no problems doing that. You're going to get spies, but so what? It's a learning experience. You're not taking a fleet out to win war zone control, like you would be if you're taking it from militia faction warfare. But from a rookie system, your object is to teach. It's not to win. And my
I
what
mean,
I
I don't
used,
know if we give them civilian everything.
well, I mean, like we said, dirt fit ships are so cheap, and you have projects like the Angel Project who are willing to get behind some people and help out with that, and you have people. There are many people out there who are willing to help pay for frigates, cheap frigates, to get new players out there as well. And what Bass is saying, it can be scary to leave those new player corporations as well. But I mean, there are so many trolls in there, and it is just
That
not the place to learn how to play Eve.
Yeah. Well, Dirk asked, why put limits on the time spent in NPC Corps? Well, we could force people into their own personal corporations, of course, but while, we want to bring everybody in and we want everybody to have this fantastic experience where you have this great group of people and you really enjoy Eve and you log in because logging in to play with your people and logging into TeamSpeak is what you look forward to. We also have to respect the fact that they're solo players. They're people who, for reasons, time, it doesn't matter what their reason is, it's theirs, want to play by themselves. I mean, the NPC corps are nice because they are social, and that becomes a question. Are the NPC corps too poisonous that we would automatically force a player into a personal corporation instead of an NPC corporation? I don't know. It's something definitely to think about, but we have to not scorn solo players while trying to be social. Like, it's a balance. We have to always maintain that balance because there's more than just what we like out there.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Because I mean, like I said as well, neutral those neutral corps. We if we get a war deck, for example, we can't run our freighter service to Lusek. So we have to drop the hauler, and export the contracts out to him. And if it wasn't for the neutral corporations, we wouldn't be able to do that. And so it is an extremely useful logistics feature, for a lot of people. But
But people say we should have more risk in logistics. So while it's, trust me, because I just did it myself, my junk freighter pilot's corp just was war decked, and I dropped her into NPC corp fast as possible. The question becomes, when we talk about risk and reward and all this stuff in Eve, should people get forced into private corporations instead of NPC corporations where they could still be war decked? I don't know, because then we have the problem of people who can never escape war decks and they stop playing. And so that's something else that we have to look at when we try to force people out of situations. How are we actually affecting them in the big picture?
Yeah, at the same time, I guess part of it is if you think of the server resources required for corporations, it's not a lot. But if everyone suddenly gets forced after a certain length of time that they go into their own one man corporation, the amount of one man corporations out there suddenly just multiplies massively. And I think that is another reason why CCP wouldn't be too keen on that. And I'm sure hard drive space for that kind of thing isn't an issue, but at the same time, it will make looking for a corporation an absolute nightmare to have another 50, 60, thousand one man corporations to dredge through. Not to mention,
Yeah,
it's
but
hard
that's why
enough
we
to
have
get a
ideas.
it's hard enough to get the name for your corporation these days as it is without trying to batter your way through the one. And we tried to get our name for our alliance and we had it, and it turned out then we looked again and someone had taken the name for a character. And we're like, okay, that's fine, we'll change it to this. And someone had taken up, and it was a one man corporation. Someone had made the corporation with one man, and you're like, come on! Word a question, can you currently
Okay.
just drop corp or close corp and recreate? Should single use ill rights be issued to stacking corp to actually have a result from war decking other than woo wasted isk? Hmm.
Okay, so what he's saying is that when you drop your war deck, somebody war deck, like I said, my personal corp, the question becomes, should that create a kill right that therefore they could still come after me? And I guess should it be a personal kill right where the corporation that attacked me would be the only ones who could activate that kill right to attempt to kill me still, since they paid the money to war deck me, and then I dropped into the NPC corp and they've lost their
Okay.
money.
Eh, maybe. Maybe. I'm not sure. I mean, it's one that I guess you could sit around and discuss the merits behind a bit more. I'm not breaking up. I didn't hear you breaking up unless I am actually breaking up.
User in your channel timed out.
Okay, and Sugar has dropped. There we go. I will give it a second here, and hopefully she'll get back in again. Whoopsies. So we'll get back again as soon as people can. As soon as Sugar gets reconnected to TeamSpeak. Cue elevator music. Has anyone got elevator music in chat for me? Alright, so I just got a tweet there from Sugar, and she has basically just fallen completely offline at the moment, so she can't talk on Twitch or anything either. Um, we'll keep posted again. If she gets reconnected, we'll get going with that. We'll go on into a wee faction warfare update. So those interested in the Warzone, or even those who aren't out there, this will be good wee insight into what's been happening recently. Alright, yeah. Okay, so it's back now again. I think the people who didn't hear me there, I got a couple of people send me a message who didn't hear me. I think it's because I wasn't talking, possibly. But as long as most of you can hear you, we've got the recording anyway. So faction war. Double check again now that you can all hear me, and I'll keep talking for a moment. Minotaur have stayed in T4 for quite a while. Actually, they literally don't leave T4. That being said, I'm not sure they're going to be able to keep it long. Minotaur Faction Warfare have had a civil war now for 2 weeks, and actually as a result of it, I've got news that some Minotaur alliances are either have or are seriously considering swapping war zones to the Galente Militia Warzone because of the amount of shooting going on with the faction warfare. Mar, I'm not sure. I can't see that bar. So I'm not sure what Amara. I would have to go and look that up. Caldari are tier 2. And they're quite strongly in tier 2, but they are jumping in and out of tier 3, which is pretty good news for them, because it means Caldari are in a strong position to push the Warzone at the moment, and we're hopeful that they, well, at least I'm hopeful anyway, that we can comes to, with the Galante folks for them. A bit of other news for you for the faction warfare area, and a bit of piracy news as well. Scum have lost their Titan to Snigwolf, and it has previously been based in Kanaka, and it's used for hot dropping. They would use it for quite a bit for hot dropping faction warfare folks, and so it's it appears that it looks a bit like there's a connection issue. It's about keeping things moving there, and I guess there's not much we can do other than hope. I'm sorry for this. This has just gone to. We'll just keep adding. I've got the full recording here anyway, and we'll try and get that uploaded to YouTube properly, and that'll be grand because TeamSpeak's constantly transmitting anyway, so that's all good. Yeah, Scum Titan down. Based in Kanaka, they would use it to do a lot of hot dropping, and of course with the Titan down, it's made faction warfare zone a lot safer. Funny thing is, it actually drifted completely off the pass, and it's, a bit of a mistake on their part to let a Titan drift off the pass, and it actually got caught by a new player checking D-scan, from what I read in the Botany article, which I'll link for you guys. But so it's either gonna reduce content, or it's gonna force those particular pirates to get out there and do a bit more. I'm gonna call it there tonight, folks, because of these connection issues. Check out Sugar Kyle's CSM thread. I'll post it in the chat now for you. Check out Angel Project. Join us in game at the AGI podcast channel. The details are all below. Follow us on Twitter. All that good stuff. Details on how to contact us are in the pub chat. Details of you can also just tweet to us as well, of course. And if you have any questions for Sugar Kyle, you can get him on Twitter as well at Sugar Kyle. And yeah, I'll get the timings in the description, and I'll edit it up properly as well. This one's going to require a bit more work on my part. But thanks for tuning in. Thanks for bearing with the technical difficulties. It's been great having Sugar Kyle on, but we're going to call it there for tonight. Like I said earlier, instead of prizes tonight, we're donating to the Angel Project, and actually there's Sugar Kyle back. Timing.
User was moved to your channel.
Hello, welcome back. Hello, welcome back.
User in your channel timed out.
And I had stopped talking there, by the way, in case some of the things had dropped. Sugar Kyle joined, and then connection dropped again. It's definitely not going anywhere tonight. So AGI podcast in game for a podcast channel. It's in the description below. Check out Arma Pub if you want to get a hold of my corporation. Sugar Kyle, same name, in game, and you'll be able to get a hold of her, and I'm sure she'll give you plenty of help. As well as check out the Angel Project as well. If you Google it, CECP has an article along with a lot of other people, and I think there's probably quite a few articles everywhere. So thanks for joining us, and I'll see you all later. Goodbye.